The wealthiest man who ever sat behind a desk in Omaha, Nebraska, has spent the majority of his adult life doing something that would get you fired from any job in the country. He sits in a quiet room and he reads. He does not attend urgent meetings. He does not respond to emails within 30 seconds. He does not grind through 16-hour days fueled by energy drinks and cold desperation. He reads annual reports. He thinks, and then he does nothing. Meanwhile, you are setting an alarm for 5:30 in the morning, destroying your circadian rhythm, committing every waking neuron to someone else's quarterly revenue target and calling it discipline. You've been told since childhood that this is the formula. Work hard. Stay loyal. Grind until your skeleton protests. And one day the universe will reward your suffering with financial freedom. But the universe does not operate on fairness. It operates on physics. And the physics of wealth have nothing to do with how many hours you bleed into a time clock. If effort alone determined net worth, every migrant farm worker picking strawberries in 100-degree heat would be a billionaire. Every overnight emergency room nurse running on 4 hours of sleep and adrenaline would retire at 40. Every single mother working 3 jobs to keep the electricity on would be sitting on a throne of generational wealth. But they are not. They are exhausted. They are underpaid, and many of them will die with less money than they started with. This is not an accident. This is architecture. The system you operate inside was not built to make you wealthy. It was built to make you useful. There's a vast and critical difference between those two outcomes. Useful means you show up on time. Useful means you absorb stress without complaint. Useful means you produce more value than you consume in salary, so the difference can be captured as profit by someone who owns the system you are running inside of. You were handed a script at birth. Go to school. Memorize what they tell you. Get credentialed. Find a stable employer. Trade your healthiest, most energetic years for a number that appears in your bank account every 2 weeks. Save whatever crumbs remain after taxes and inflation have taken their share. Repeat this cycle for 4 decades, and then maybe when your joints ache and your memory fades and your best years are photographs in a drawer, you will be permitted to stop. This is not a wealth strategy. This is a deployment manual for human capital. You are the asset on someone else's balance sheet, and the return on that asset flows upward. Never to you. The cruelest part of this design is that it disguises itself as virtue. Society has wrapped wage labor in the language of morality. You are taught that exhaustion is honorable, that suffering for a paycheck is a sign of character, that the man who sacrifices his health, his sleep, and his relationships for a salary is somehow more noble than the man who refuses to participate in the trade at all. But nobility does not compound. Virtue does not generate cash flow. And your landlord does not accept self-sacrifice as a form of rent. The mathematics of your life do not care how hard you worked. They only care what you own when the work is done. And right now, if you are honest with yourself, you own almost nothing. You own fatigue. You own obligations. You own a depreciating vehicle and a growing sense that something about this equation is fundamentally broken. You are right. It is broken. And it was broken on purpose. But the fracture does not begin in your bank account. It begins in the equation itself. It begins in the way your income is structured at the most basic mathematical level. And until you see the trap hidden inside that equation, you will keep running and the cage will keep holding. There is a law in thermodynamics that governs every closed system in the known universe. Energy within a sealed container can be transformed, but it can never exceed the total amount that was put in. Your salary operates on this identical principle, and no one has ever explained this to you because the moment you understand it, the entire illusion collapses. Your income is calculated by a brutally simple equation: the number of hours you work multiplied by the rate at which you are compensated per hour. That is the total boundary of your financial universe. It is a sealed container, and no matter how violently you shake it, the output can never exceed the input. You have 24 hours in a day. You must sleep or your biology will shut down involuntarily. You must eat. You must commute. You must maintain the basic infrastructure of being a living human organism. After all mandatory biological deductions, you have perhaps 12 usable hours. That is your ceiling. It is bolted to the laws of physics, and no amount of motivation or caffeine or pre-dawn alarm clocks can raise it by a single minute. Now you've been told there is a clever workaround. Increase the rate. Go back to school. Accumulate credentials. Specialize. Become a surgeon, a corporate attorney, a senior engineer. Push your hourly rate to $300, $400, $500. And yes, the cage becomes more comfortable. The walls are painted a nicer color. The floor has heated tiles. But it is still a cage. Because the moment you stop working, the income stops with you. The surgeon whose hands develop a tremor earns zero. The attorney who burns out and cannot argue another case earns zero. The engineer who collapses from a stress-induced cardiac event earns nothing from a hospital bed. Your income has a single point of failure, and that single point is your body. You are the engine and the fuel on the chassis all at once. When the machine breaks, the entire operation goes dark. There is no redundancy. There is no backup generator. There is just you running until you cannot run anymore. But the mathematics get worse. The system does not just cap your input. It actively erodes your output. As a wage earner, you sit in the highest tax bracket relative to your control over that taxation. The government extracts its share before your hands ever touch the money. You receive what remains after the system is fed. Then inflation enters the equation like a slow, invisible acid, dissolving the purchasing power of every dollar you manage to keep. Central banks expand the money supply year after year. Your 3% raise is not a raise. It is a controlled retreat. You are not gaining ground. You are losing it more slowly than the person who got no raise at all. You are sprinting uphill on a surface that is sliding downhill beneath your feet, and the net distance traveled is zero or negative. This is the thermodynamic prison of linear income. The container is sealed. The energy is capped, and external forces are siphoning heat out of the system faster than you can generate it. No amount of overtime can overcome this. No side hustle conducted with your leftover exhaustion can outpace a structural deficit built into the architecture of the equation itself. You cannot outwork broken mathematics. You can only change the equation entirely, and changing the equation requires something that your current life is systematically engineered to destroy. It requires empty space. It requires stillness. It requires the disciplined refusal to act until the precise conditions arrive that make action devastating. The wealthy do not work inside closed systems. They build open ones. They construct machines that pull energy from external sources and compound it without human limitation. But to understand how they do this, you must first understand why the most powerful financial strategy on earth looks like laziness to everyone trapped inside the cage. In the plains of sub-Saharan Africa, there is a predator that has confused scientists for decades: the crocodile. It is not the fastest animal. It is not the strongest. It does not chase its prey across open ground the way a cheetah does, burning thousands of calories in a desperate sprint that fails more often than it succeeds. The crocodile does something far more terrifying. It waits. It submerges itself in dark water, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. Its metabolic rate drops to almost nothing. It conserves every molecule of energy. It does not move. It does not react to small fish swimming past its jaws. It ignores the birds. It ignores the insects. It appears completely dead to the world. And then a wildebeest steps into the river. A 1,000-pound animal, unaware that beneath the surface a patient predator has been calculating this exact moment. The crocodile explodes from the water with a force that defies its stillness. One strike. One decisive violent burst of stored energy, and the hunt is over in seconds. The crocodile eats for a month on that single moment of action. The cheetah who sprinted all day collapses in the grass hungry and depleted. This is the fundamental difference between how you operate financially and how the masters of capital operate. You are the cheetah. You are sprinting after every opportunity that moves. Every inbox notification, every trending investment on social media, every side hustle a stranger recommended in a YouTube comment, every overtime shift your employer dangles in front of you like a piece of raw meat. You are burning your finite energy reserves, chasing small prey across open ground, and your success rate is catastrophic. You catch almost nothing of real value, and the effort of the chase leaves you with nothing in reserve when the massive opportunity finally arrives. The true capital allocator is the crocodile, submerged, patient, conserving energy with a discipline that looks like laziness to every cheetah sprinting past. I've operated on this principle for over 6 decades. There have been years, entire calendar years, where I made no significant investment at all. I sat in my office in Omaha reading annual reports, drinking cherry cola, and watching the market throw thousands of pitches past me. Wall Street screamed at me to swing. Analysts published articles questioning whether I had lost my edge. Competitors laughed and pointed to their short-term returns. But I was not asleep. I was submerged. I was watching. I was waiting for the 1,000-pound wildebeest to step into the river, and when it did, I struck with every dollar I had. When the financial crisis of 2008 brought the global banking system to its knees, I deployed billions of dollars in a matter of weeks. I bought Goldman Sachs preferred shares with a 10% guaranteed dividend. I bought Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad for $44 billion. I acquired assets that the cheetahs were desperately selling at the bottom because their cognitive bandwidth had collapsed under the weight of their own panic. They had been sprinting for years. They had nothing left. I had been still for years. I had everything. The tragedy of the working class is not that they lack intelligence. It is that they lack stillness. Your calendar is so full of meaningless motion that you could not recognize a generational opportunity if it knocked on your door. You are so addicted to the neurochemical drip of feeling busy that the thought of sitting in an empty room with no task and no notification terrifies you more than poverty itself. But the empty room is where fortunes are designed. The silence is where clarity lives. Every hour you spend in frantic motion is an hour your mind cannot spend identifying the one decision that would change your trajectory forever. The crocodile does not need to be busy. It needs to be right once. And that single moment of precision feeds it longer than 1,000 exhausting chases ever could. But there is a reason you cannot sit still. There is a reason the silence feels unbearable. The system has built a secondary cage around you. One that is invisible and far more dangerous than the income trap. It is a cage constructed entirely from your own psychology, and it is consuming every dollar your labor produces before the money ever has a chance to compound. There is a medical phenomenon that battlefield surgeons identified centuries ago. A soldier could survive the wound that should have killed him. He could endure the surgery without anesthesia. He could make it through the most brutal physical trauma the human body can absorb. And then in the weeks that followed during recovery when the danger had passed, he would die. Not from the wound, from the treatment. The constant doses of morphine administered to manage his pain would create a dependency so severe that the drug itself became the lethal agent. The medication designed to help him survive became the thing that killed him. Your high salary is morphine. You have survived the initial wound of financial struggle. You climbed out of entry-level poverty. You endured the grueling years of building credentials and paying dues. You made it to the other side. You are now earning a real income. 200,000, 300,000, maybe more. And society tells you that the surgery is over. You made it, but the morphine drip has already started. The first dose is the apartment, not a functional shelter. A luxury statement. A high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and a rooftop pool you will use 3 times a year. The second dose is the vehicle, not transportation. Identity. A leased European machine that hemorrhages value the moment leaves the lot. A monthly payment that would constitute a mortgage in most cities. The third dose is the lifestyle. The restaurants where a single dinner costs what a family of 4 spends on groceries in a week. The designer clothes that signal status to strangers whose opinions have zero mathematical impact on your net worth. The premium subscriptions. The club memberships. The curated aesthetic of a successful person performing success for an audience that is not paying attention. Each dose feels earned. Each dose feels deserved. And that is what makes this trap so perfectly lethal. You are not spending recklessly. You are self-medicating. Every purchase is a hit of dopamine administered directly to a brain that is being destroyed by the stress of maintaining the income required to fund the previous hit. This is the exhaustion tax. You work 60 hours a week in a psychological pressure cooker. Your nervous system is in a constant state of elevated cortisol. Your body is in perpetual fight or flight mode. And when you finally collapse onto your couch on a Friday night, your depleted brain does not reach for a compound interest calculator. It reaches for a credit card. Because damaged minds do not build wealth. Damaged minds buy comfort. And the comfort is expensive. The $400 noise-canceling headphones to block out the anxiety. The 2-week tropical vacation that functions not as exploration but emergency psychiatric triage. The impulse purchases at midnight when your cognitive defenses have completely fallen. You are not living. You are administering a continuous IV drip of consumer morphine to a psyche that is being crushed by a career you chose because someone told you it would make you free. And here is where the loop seals itself shut. The morphine is expensive, so you must maintain the income. To maintain the income, you must endure the stress. The stress depletes your mind. Your depleted mind demands more morphine, and the cycle accelerates. You are not building wealth on $300,000 a year. You are building a more sophisticated, more expensive, more socially acceptable version of the same poverty trap that held you at $50,000. The walls are marble now instead of drywall, but you are still locked inside. The masters of capital understood this trap before they ever became wealthy. They refused the morphine from the beginning, not because they could not afford comfort, because they understood that comfort purchased with active income is not comfort. It is a liability with a recurring monthly payment. They kept their overhead so low that their income exceeded their needs by a massive margin. That margin is not savings. That margin is ammunition. It is dry powder waiting to be deployed when the fat pitch arrives. But most people will never accumulate that ammunition because their minds have been so thoroughly hollowed out by the grind that they cannot think beyond the next paycheck. And this is the final invisible cage, the one that makes escape nearly impossible. There is a point in orbital mechanics where a spacecraft has burned just enough fuel and reached just enough velocity that the gravitational field holding it can no longer win. The engineers at NASA call this escape velocity. Below that threshold, it does not matter how powerful the rocket is. Gravity will always claw it back. The spacecraft will arc beautifully against the sky, burning through its entire fuel supply, and then it will fall. It will crash back to the surface with nothing left. Above that threshold, everything changes. The pull weakens with every passing second. The craft accelerates not because the engines are working harder, but because the resistance is disappearing. Momentum becomes self-sustaining. The same force that imprisoned the rocket now becomes irrelevant. Your financial life obeys this identical law. Right now, you are below escape velocity. The gravity of your expenses, your taxes, your lifestyle, and your cognitive depletion is pulling you back to the surface with every paycheck you earn. You burn fuel every single month. You generate thrust through your labor, but the thrust never exceeds the pull. So you arc and you fall. You arc and you fall. The same trajectory repeating month after month, year after year, after decade after decade. And you call this a career. To break free, you do not need to burn harder. You need to redirect the thrust entirely. You must stop pointing your rocket sideways into the atmosphere of someone else's business model. You must stop generating thrust for a system that captures your exhaust and converts it into shareholder value for people who will never know your name. You must build your own engine. And your engine is not your body. Your engine is a system that generates economic energy without requiring your continuous physical presence. It is a portfolio of assets that compounds while your eyes are closed. It is a business architecture that serves customers at 3 a.m. while you are unconscious. It is a collection of equity positions in enterprises so durable, so essential, so deeply moated that they will produce cash flow for decades regardless of who sits in the Oval Office or what crisis dominates the evening news. I did not build my fortune by working harder than everyone else. I built it by owning things. I own pieces of companies that sell products billions of humans cannot live without. Every time someone opens a bank account or drinks a bottle of sugar water or pays an insurance premium or charges a purchase to a credit card, a microscopic fraction of that transaction flows into my compounding machine. I am not present for any of these transactions. I am in my office reading. The machine runs without me. That is escape velocity, and I will tell you something that will be difficult to hear. In the beginning, your machine will be embarrassing. You will spend months building something that produces almost nothing. $5, $11, an amount so small your coworkers would laugh if they saw it. Let them. They are measuring your engine against their paycheck. They do not understand that your $5 machine is fundamentally different from their $60,000 salary. Their salary requires their body. Your machine does not. Their salary has a ceiling bolted to the laws of biology. Your machine has no ceiling. Their salary stops the instant they stop. Your machine cannot be stopped. And if you protect your cognitive bandwidth, if you refuse the morphine, if you sit in stillness long enough to think clearly, and if you relentlessly reinvest every dollar that machine produces back into itself, then the compounding curve will do what it has always done throughout the entire history of capital. It will bend. Slowly at first. Almost imperceptibly. 5 becomes 12. 12 becomes 30. 30 becomes 100. And then one morning you will wake up and realize that your machine produced more money while you were sleeping than your job pays you to be awake. That is the millisecond the gravitational field loses its grip. That is the moment you achieve escape velocity. From that point forward, you are no longer a laborer. You are no longer a cost center on someone else's ledger. You are a sovereign entity in the economy. You own your time. You own your mind. You own the single most valuable asset a human being can possess, which is the freedom to do absolutely nothing until the precise moment when action becomes devastating. The system you were born into will continue to function without you. It will find another cog. It will always find another cog. The question that remains is whether you will spend the rest of your finite, unrepeatable life as a replaceable component inside someone else's machine, or whether you will walk out of the factory, sit down in a quiet room and begin building your own, compound your capital, or let the system compound you. The mathematics do not care which one you choose, but your life will look radically different depending on the answer.